delighted to speak on this topic because it is something that continues to come up and is an area that I feel very comfortable talking about. And I like that when I feel comfortable, other people feel comfortable, and then we're able to get into some areas that often don't get addressed, and you can make some really significant and nice changes. Often I get contacted, something's happened. Johnny was at school and he pulled down his pants and he showed his privates to someone. Or, Johnny walked up to a girl and asked if he could touch her breast. Or Johnny walked up to a teacher and said, I'd like to see your boobs, can you lift up your shirt, right? And people are upset and they're, how could this happen? And he's violating boundaries. And it's like, what have we done to talk to him about boundaries? What have we done to satisfy normal human curiosity about the body? And what kind of education have we provided up until this point about a myriad of other things? And people also automatically go to the idea of something being sexual, where I've had people come up and, a child might come up to a teacher and want to rub the pantyhose on their legs, or be fascinated by something, maybe want to touch someone's hair and get too close and smell their hair. And they're like, oh, I'm feeling, I feel like I've been violated. I feel like we need to educate the people working in the community, as well as, and not always jump to this is a serious problem, that, it's a sexual issue that needs to be addressed. It may be, but it also may be a lack of knowledge or some curiosity or other boundaries that we need to talk about. So it's within the constellation of a variety of other issues. So we're not just going to be talking about sexuality, because intimate relationships are part of the constellation of all relationships. And so really what we're talking about is starting off with relationship education. Why are individuals with autism at risk? Because of the social communication disorder, there are numerous deficits that can impact someone's understanding of the environment and environmental awareness, and we're going to go into a little bit of that. With regard to risks and issues, situations have come up, clients who have misinterpreted friendships through needy kinds of behaviors, and they've been exploited in a variety of ways, having people want to move in with them, want to get their money, steal their television sets, be able to exploit them in that way. And that is just that is, to me, in the line of understanding boundaries within relationships that isn't related to sexuality and consent and all those things. If you were looking at just that, I said they're not related. To me, that is related. Like understanding your rights and what is reasonable to give in a relationship and what's an unreasonable expectation. And so when we're talking about consent, we're able to fold in all these other areas that are very important to help people. If you're independent and you're living on your own, I think it's even scarier for our parents and grandparents, because you're more at risk in some ways. When you're dependent and you're living in a more supported environment, you're at risk in other ways. So we're going to talk about that as well. But I've had clients that have been very sexually curious, didn't know what to do with finding an appropriate partner, maybe goes to a strip club, the girl pays so much attention to him, he's thinking, she really likes me, misinterpretations of what that relationship is like, but really, he's not going to go to his family members and talk about the situation, because there is a sense of shame, of not feeling comfortable, discussing this with them, and then it leads to that particular situation led to him continuing to frequent that location, spend a great deal of money, fights with her boyfriend, and then his car got vandalized, and even if we talk about it today in our sessions, he becomes quite. There's a lot of shame and guilt over that. And I'd really like to help us start conversations before we get to that and prevent that for people. And so recognizing that people on the autism spectrum, they're going to have sexual curiosity, they have sexual needs as well, and we need to find functional ways to meet those needs and to promote sexual health in a way that's positive and safe. We had gotten this client, we'd worked with her for many years, and one of the programs that we worked on was relationship identification. So we worked on knowing what are the different kinds of people in your lives. acquaintances, professional acquaintances, strangers, friends, family members, those things. And then we also set up situations where people might approach her at something that would be tempting, maybe but that's inappropriate for her to go along with them or whatever. And we actually, not only did we talk about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and where, but we practiced what do you do if the situation occurs, and then we practiced situations without her knowing that we had set it up. Had someone that was unknown to her make this happen. So, for example, this client was very interested in DVDs at the time, so we had someone approach her and say, hey, I got these DVDs, would you like to, come over to my car, I've got some. And so we would set up situations to test and see if she understood the material we were teaching her about appropriate assertiveness, what to do. And I remember one time we did it with a new hire at our office, and he's like, I don't really think I like playing the perp. And I was like, well, you got to, this is important for us to assess where she's at. And so we came in, and she didn't go with him, which was great, but the step that we now knew was missing was that she didn't tell anybody. And what we wanted her to do, I think she was 12 at the time, we wanted her to do is she knew the steps, and she didn't go with him at all, and she kind of went on her way, but we wanted her to also tell someone in authority, hey, when I was at the park, this is what happened to me. People on the spectrum, we're having limited access to information. A lot of us are learning kind of social interactions and limits and boundaries through peer interactions. You start off by, your parents are providing you a lot of instruction through elementary school, then through your teen years, peers become a greater influence. And that's really where things start to really fall off tremendously. When kids are going into middle school and high school, they're not as involved with peers, unfortunately. So they're not getting a lot of practice in just even interpreting social cues, understanding teasing versus, making fun of someone, really coming to terms with the idea of people aren't going to say what they mean, which is very difficult for a lot of my clients. They're like, well, if she would just say she's not interested, that would be so much easier. And I'm like, I know what you're saying, but let me explain why she doesn't, okay? And let me explain, we need to look at her behavior. Her behavior is going to tell you a lot about whether she's comfortable or not. When the person always says, well, maybe, but then never follows through, we can take that let's take this into consideration. We can take that as a no, okay? So, but it would be, why doesn't she just say it? I would say it. I'm like, I know you would say it, okay? And that's fine, but let's look at all these other, considerations. So because they're not having those opportunities, they're missing that practice. So then when they get to a situation where they're having sexual desire, they're really not prepared in all those little ways to deal with something as powerful, intense, potentially dangerous, illegal, kinds of situations. So then we have people choosing inappropriate partners or inappropriate locations or those kinds of things. So because of the lack of social opportunities, inattention to the environment, we can get some more victimization and exploitation. And also, unfortunately, sometimes our clients are the exploiters. They're the abusers in the situations. And so we need to talk about that as well. We want to also correct misinformation from the internet and media. And what I have a lot now is clients that come to me, and really their primary mode of learning about sexuality is from the internet. Not a great resource, really. Because while there is many wonderful things on the internet, there's also a lot of things that can steer you in the wrong direction. And there's also a problem that we have with young adults and overuse of pornography on the internet as well as internet safety. So I have a little bit at the end to kind of talk about some of that. But that's an ongoing issue that I keep learning more and more about, but it definitely comes up in my sessions. Okay, so we have clients that come in. They may be socially naive. They have lack of connection. They don't have a lot of practice socially. They have maybe a more difficult time identifying and describing what's going on with them, or being able to identify and describe what's happened to them. A lot of my male clients come in feeling very powerless, needy, wanting a partner. Why can't I find a girlfriend? Therefore they're more vulnerable to being exploited. People talking about, I've had clients tell me, well, I'm just going to hire a prostitute. And I'm just going to hire a prostitute. I'm going to get it over with. And my dad told me I should just do that because then I'll learn. And so exploring, okay, what are the ramifications? Now, my job as a counselor is not to instill values, but that comes from family, church, temple, and then your own kind of education and your decision making as an individual, as a human. However, my job is to clarify what are the important considerations, what's the ramifications of this decision, and what is this going to mean for your life in the long term. Why would we not choose to take that as an option? Number one, I believe that there are other outlets for you. So let's talk about that. Let's have really frank discussions about that. But I've had people, maybe they went to a prostitute or someone, and they, like, well, I got ripped off. I paid $20, and someone told me I could have gotten much more than I got, but I didn't know. And it's like, we have so much to talk about. And once you've gotten to that point, we've missed a lot already. So we need, I know I went right there. So I hope you guys are okay with that. We're going to be talking pretty frankly about some issues that have come up. All right. Emotional issues, powerless, neediness, and then sometimes it can turn into anger and upset. Not being able to find a partner can be very frustrating. And then that can lead to a lot of anger and upset. So we need to normalize, yes, it is frustrating, but let's look, these are some other options. Okay, so that we're able to provide an outlet. The reality is for some of our clients, for a lot of people, there might not be a reasonable partner. So masturbation and self-sex is something we're going to need to talk about. And we're going to need to promote private time and acknowledge that this is a viable option that many adults take advantage of, and we can't be embarrassed about talking about that. And if you don't know how to do that, we're going to have to talk about resources to make that happen for you, okay? Because this is an important part of your life. We can't pretend that, they operate at a 6-year-old level. I don't think they're going to have those needs. Or he seems kind of asexual to me. He doesn't ever talk about having an interest in girls. Because people aren't bringing that topic up, or because you think they're cognitively challenged, the biology still progresses, and things can happen when you don't mean to. Okay, so I keep going on to that. But the main point is we want people to have, if people are going to choose to be sexually active, have healthy sex lives, and also let them understand the responsibilities, the resources, and the rights that are involved with sexual behavior.